How do guys feel about girls making the first move? Unpopular opinion. 100% of guys want a girl they are attracted to make the first move. But guys are not attracted to 100% of girls, no matter what you might think. Every single time this question gets asked, every single guy answering yes is picturing some girl they have a crush on making their first move. In reality, it's a lot more likely to be some girl they have no interest in or nothing in common with. Yes, girls absolutely should feel comfortable making the first move just as much as guys, and the world would be a better place if everyone was more open. But the reality of this playing out is that a lot of girls are going to get shot down, and a lot of guys are going to be approached by girls they don't want anything to do with. If it did become common for girls to ask out guys, the guys would probably feel the same about it as girls do now. Flattered but not interested most of the time, interested some of the time, and slightly creeped out and uncomfortable some of the time. It's been my experience that if a guy isn't asking me out, he's not interested. Men will flirt and chase me overtly, but when I turn around and ask them out, they have never once accepted. Many turned out to be married or in long-term relationships, unbeknownst to me at the time, and showed an interest in me for no apparent reason. In some cases, it's made the friendship so uncomfortable for the guy that it ruined it. In one case, I developed strong feelings for a guy who was always talking to only me in groups, following me around, talking to his friends about how he thought I was smart and attractive, trying to do me unsolicited favors, etc. I thought maybe he was shy, so I asked him for coffee and he rejected me without explanation. I later found out he was living with his girlfriend. I play it safe anymore and assume men are not interested in me until they actually ask me out. In the end, it seems like the only surefire way to know if a guy is interested is if he's got a billboard in the highway with your name on it. Until then, it's just a guessing game with a side of awkward encounters. Story 2. Gonna be that guy here. But every guy who blindly wishes for this is imagining some really cute girl crush with a bashful personality, shyly approaching them at the mall and adorably asking for their number. In reality, what this question means in a real-life scale are much more commonly girls who aren't interested in at all or super aggressive or socially strange, coming up to us at inconvenient times and leave us hanging to find improvised reasons why we aren't interested. Or even worse, girls that we only think of as friends will start to pursue us as more when all you really want is friendship from them. Yes, we all have that friend. The one we never thought of intimately because something just wasn't there, suddenly leaning on you to move to something more. Sorry guys, but this scenario is more than just a nice wish. And I know a lot of guys who don't get a lot of female attention are thinking right now, this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know that I'd want any girl's attention. Those guys haven't had to turn down a close friend and then immediately notice a difference in dynamic just because you had to turn them down. And don't get me wrong. I'm in no way of saying that girls shouldn't be the one to make a move. I'm not establishing any social standard here. I chose my word very carefully based on my own experiences, paralleling everything I've heard girls complain about as well. What I'm commenting on is how quickly guys are groaning about wishing girls would make the first move as a blanket statement, without realizing what it means in practice. If you're a girl and you're getting signs from a guy that he's interested, send it. Story 3. I've asked out 3 guys who acted interested in me. Guy 1 was my friend. We sat next to each other in class, he came to my birthday meal, we got on great. He laughed at all my jokes, etc. He said he didn't like me like that. Ouch. Teen me, I was 14, was devastated and read this to mean, "You're hideous and how dare you think I'd even consider being your boyfriend? Ew." Adult me realized he literally just didn't see me like that. Guy 2 was another friend. I was 15 at this time. I'd been scared of asking guys out due to Guy 1 rejecting me. The Guy 2 was giving me so many signs but not taking the plunge himself. He would save me a seat next to him in class, always wanted to talk to me, laughed at all my jokes, hugged me, held my damn hand when walking home one time, giving me crazy butterflies, slept over at my house. So I figured he was shy and asked him out. "Sorry, I don't see you like that." I was like, what? Guy 3 was just a straight-up guess at this point. I figured I was a moron who couldn't read signs. I mean, if someone holding your damn hand for a 30-minute walk isn't a sign they like you, then what the hell is? I asked Guy 3 out of pure chance at this point. I was 17 and I thought, screw it. He'll probably say no and I'm expecting it, but at least I'll know if he's flirting or being nice. He said yes. We dated for 3 years and he was emotionally cruel. Everyone told me what a nice guy he was. Boy, they had no idea what he was like. Told his friends I had and he needed to cheer me up. I hadn't. I've never been pregnant. He just wanted to hang out with me that day instead of his friends and needed a reason, I guess. I don't know where I'm going with this. The moral of the story is, I'm crap with guys. I see a lot of guys in general assume it's easy for girls. It's not. It's equally easy and equally crap for all sides. So men out there who are crap with the girls, I feel you. I'm now 28 and haven't dated since. Literally can't due to illness. But as much as I'm looking forward to being well again, I'm dreading any dating stuff, as in an ideal world a decent guy would poof out of thin air, but life isn't like that. The first success asking is a cruel one. The first success being asked out, in between guy 2 and 3, gets more cruel. I feel doomed. Story 4. Completely apathetic to it, one way or another. There are plenty of passive guys who would prefer it if society didn't expect them to be active agents, and plenty of active girls who would prefer it if society didn't expect them to be passive agents. I'm sure there are plenty of passive guys who'd love to see an active girl who'd dare to ask them out, but there are still plenty of guys who like to be the hunter, and plenty of women that enjoy being sought after in a passive position. I think that every style of courting should be more welcomed. I don't like hearing incels complaining about how spoiled passive-leaning women are for being passive and having standards. And I don't like hearing nice girls acting entitled to guys asking them out in droves. Accepting every behavior seems like literally the only correct way to be. Also, I think the guys should always make the first move thing should go away. Not only are men deprived of compliments and attention in general, but now we live in a culture which ostracizes and witch hunts men based on pure speculation. A guy can read woman language wrong and think someone is into him and ask her out, make her feel uncomfortable, and now he's labeled a creep. And he loses his job and friends and trust and family. It's going to get to a point where women will have to make the first move most of the time due to the fear a man will have in the back of his mind of making a mistake and the consequences that come. Maybe it's time for a dating app that matches people based on their preferred courting style. Swipe right for I'll take the lead. Swipe left for I'm happy to follow. And for the love of all that's romantic, can we get a no judgment filter? Story 5. As a woman who has consistently been making the first move, a little reciprocation would be nice. Like, I will ask you out, I will plan dates, I will initiate a first kiss, I'll do it, because I know what I want. But give me a break and take the lead. I know men are attracted to women who make the first move. I know men like receiving compliments. But so do women. Duh. I know that should be obvious, but y'all out here asking women to step up and make a move, and historically and culturally, we've been taught over generations to sit back and be meek and mild and not aggressive. So I have worked to overcome centuries of patriarchal standards that are ingrained into our society, as well as years of my own deep insecurities and fear of rejection. If I can do it, you can do it. I only have so much energy to put into something before I'm going to give up. So maybe text me first or back within a reasonable amount of time. Maybe suggest the next date instead of relying on me to make all the decisions. Because I'm tired. Story 6. You're gonna get a lot of, oh boy, they'll love it. Woo-wee. But just like anybody, the important caveat is only if they find you attractive. If they're not attracted to you, odds are they wouldn't like it. If they're attracted to you, odds are they would like it. I don't know because I've never been a girl, but I would think you'd get hit on quite a bit and eventually develop a routine to deal with it when you don't like the person hitting on you. Guys rarely get hit on, and so when a girl they don't find attractive hits on them, there's a chance it can be a train wreck, just because they deal with that situation hardly ever. And it can catch them off guard. Guilty. Obligatory and not every guy, not every girl. There's always nuance and always exceptions. Blah, blah, blah. I think it's important to differentiate flirting, compliments, and the first move. Flirting is fine, probably regardless of attraction. I certainly don't care when old ladies flirt and give me compliments. I definitely would if they suddenly asked me out or leaned in for a kiss or something. That's a no-no. That would make things awkward very fast. Story 7. I agree with the equality argument, and just like it shouldn't be on the guy, it shouldn't be just on the girl. However, every girl I've ever dated has made the first move on me, and it works almost 100% of the time. Especially if you know each other and there's even the slightest thought that he could like you. So as long as he doesn't have a girlfriend, you should be good. When I was dating, using online dating sites especially, whenever a girl made the first move, she immediately moved to the very top in who I was interested in. To me, it shows confidence and an interest in doing away with the whole traditional system. Also, it felt awesome, knowing someone was interested enough in me to try to strike up a conversation. Whether I went on a date, something came of the conversation or not, the change of pace and not having to wonder if I'd be coming across too strong was amazing. I always felt so skeezy trying to hit on a girl. I'm now married, and surprise, surprise, my wife made the first move. Very happy she did. Also, it is important to note that despite the fact that most of the people in this thread are for it, there are some men who will feel emasculated if the woman makes the first move. They'll feel like their masculinity is threatened. However, It's also important to note that the men who feel that way are cowards. So if you make the first move and the man doesn't like it, he probably wasn't worth it anyway. Story 8. I find it a good thing when girls take the first move. Most people think guys have to make a move first, but we don't know how girls will react to our advances and will often not make any. I helped this girl move once, and one day we were cleaning out the closet. When the closet was cleaned out enough for 2 people, we ended up hanging out in the closet. She made the first move and we started dating. And 4.5 years later, we're still going strong. I will admit that due to the pressure of being a modern and reasonable male, I have adopted several ideals throughout my dating life. This includes not pressuring women, so I'm not seen as another male that only has one thing on his mind. I never make the first move with my wife. I need permission. Even then, I still don't make the obvious first move. I don't mind it. I don't think it diminishes male dominance over female dominance. In a healthy relationship, both female and male should have the same amount of dominance towards the other, in my opinion. Story 9. I met my wife when I was 18. She was my boss at a retail chain that's no longer in operation. I fell in love with her. But she was a few years older than me, and at first, I assumed someone like her must have a significant other. Months went by, and I had no idea she liked me as well. I was nowhere near the thought of making a move on her. I just dreamt of it. One weekend, I was supposed to go to a Black Keys concert with my friend, and I hadn't been texting her all day. For weeks, at this point. She started talking about how she was going to the drive-in by herself that night because her friend had canceled, and she really wanted to see the movie playing. I offered to go with her so she wouldn't be alone. Boom. She threw her bait in, caught what she wanted, and just started to reel me in. Long story short, she tricked me into that first date. And 6 years later, here we are. So, to answer the question, I don't care who makes the first move, and guys don't have to be obligated to. I would have never made a move, and because she did, I found out she was the love of my life. Story 10. Worked out for me. Not only did she make the first move, but I turned her down several times, and it is still a joke to this day. I'd come out of an awful relationship and wasn't interested in being with anyone. She was persistent, politely so. We were good friends, and one day after work, she asked me if I would mind coming over to help her hang a new painting she had gotten for her living room. It was large and a little awkward. She had recently moved and was decorating. I obliged. She offered me a drink while I was surveying the wall, and I accepted. While I'm hanging it up, she points out that Game of Thrones is about to come on. We're both avid watchers, and at least I could see it now instead of waiting for it to come on demand. Clearly that made sense, right? We talked, watched the show, and hung out for a couple hours after that. I went home, and the next day she called because she had bought a large coffee table and she wanted to show me over dinner. We went out to eat. I paid because that's just how I was raised. It was a great time, and we were there at the restaurant for about 3 hours. We continued to hang out over the next couple weeks, and suddenly I realized we were dating. I brought this up, and she said yes, we had been dating since the night we went out to dinner. I disagreed that it was not a date. It was 2 friends having a good time, and I paid. She insisted it was a date, but by that point, I didn't care. This woman had somehow softened my heart and helped me heal some of the damage my previous relationships had caused. Today, I am head over heels in love with this woman and will be proposing as soon as I have saved enough for a ring. New Year's is my goal. She will say yes. It's not arrogance, but confidence. I see in her eyes and her words that she loves me every bit as much as I love her. I can't imagine spending life without her. Story 11. I don't have a problem with it, and in fact, prefer it. I've always had a fear of being accused of misconduct. Not out of misogyny, but because I'm acutely aware of male or female power dynamics. My mother was barely 17 when I was born, married at 18, had another child at 18, and divorced before 19. She remarried at 25. Some of my mother's boyfriends are among my earliest memories. I've also had significantly more female friends than male friends. I feel like I've grown up in a weird era of straddling the line between Gen X and Gen Y or millennials. People in my immediate age range are the last generation to truly experience a pre-internet world. We came of age as both were happening. I feel like this has put my generation in an interesting place culturally when dating. We were born in a time hot off the free love era of the 60s and 70s. Women had the right to vote for almost 70 years and were working since the 50s. It wasn't until the 70s, however, that they really started to hit their stride professionally. The 70s are when women really started getting higher educations and entering STEM and other well-respected fields, rather than largely clerical work and nursing. Second-wave feminism also started to wind down after winning major court victories like Roe v. Wade, integration into boys' clubs and Title IX. Third-wave feminism began in the 90s, right when my era was starting school. Third wave wasn't so much about politics as a coming-out party for female individuality. Cruelty. Along with reproductive rights were central issues, women also openly embraced their gender through self-expression as a challenge to objectification. As a consequence of the time period I was born, my formative years were rich with awareness of societal inequality for women. I am completely aware of how even a completely innocent, unwanted advance may be perceived. I've heard countless stories from my female friends about, to be generous, awkward encounters by unwanted suitors. The majority of the time, they were just going about their day at work. I just have no desire to be that guy. There's a stigma there, but I cannot say it is not well earned. It is also simply a fact that, by pure accident of my birth, I am afforded privileges women are not. I can walk through a dark alleyway or parking lot at night with no fear of mistreatment. My ideas do not get belittled, nor my appearance judged because of my gender. There is a near-endless list. The consequences of even just a false accusation of impropriety can also be devastating. The Duke Lacrosse case from 2006, for example. A lot of lives can be ruined. Story 12. Usually I get a little confidence boost even if I'm not attracted to the girl. But in one situation I was left feeling what I'm sure most women have felt at least once. There was a girl that I was friendly with. I wouldn't call us friends, but I did see her pretty often. I'd known her for around 2.5 to 3 years when, out of nowhere, she started hitting on me. At first, my confidence was way up, but I wasn't interested in anything more. I stayed polite and friendly, but tried not to show too much interest. Well, she eventually asked me out. I tried to decline politely, but she didn't give me any way to get out of it without being cruel. Eventually, I agreed to meet her for supper. We met, talked, had a good time, but I still wasn't interested in anything more. She kept insisting on going on dates with me, not taking no for an answer, so I had to start being short with her. I hate myself for it, but she gave me no other option. She got the hint eventually and left me alone, but that situation opened my eyes to how a lot of women must feel when men just won't get the hint. Story 13. Women, let me tell you something. Sometimes guys are busy with their own thoughts just as many of you are. It's not that we don't want to have a relationship with you, it's just that we're dealing with our own daily problems and stuff gets put on the back burner. After my first 2 years in college, I'm sitting in the back having a bonfire with a lot of my friends when a few of them admitted to me that they at some point wanted to date me. That was a huge shock to me because I wouldn't have turned any of them down had they made the first move. They all said pretty much the same thing where it was chalked up to, you just didn't seem interested in me. It wasn't that I was not interested, but rather, I was at a point where the stress of having to figure out what I wanted from my life took priority. So take a shot, so you don't miss out on any of those what-if situations. Frankly, it doesn't even matter if I'm not into the girl. Who doesn't want to be asked out? It's never bad news to hear that a girl likes you, and honestly, if she's been waiting for him to make the first move and he hasn't taken the hint, he probably never will. Guys are simple and stupid. We usually don't pick up on hints. It just sounds a lot better to me to hear a girl say, "Hey, I like you, date me," than getting subtle hints and light flirts from her for a month. Like, there's nothing wrong with flirting, but sometimes we need a shove. Story 14. 3 weeks before the AP English test at the end of my junior year, I see some girl walk past out in the hallway and I think to myself in my head, damn, I wish she was in my class. She was one of the most beautiful women I had ever seen. Approximately 30 seconds later, she's being escorted to the seat behind me by my teacher. How convenient. I don't speak to her for the entire year because the devastation to my ego would be too great to overcome. Fast forward to my senior year. Her and I are both in the library getting the same assignment done for a professor. We chat for a bit about it, and as I'm leaving, she asks for my number and says, "I think you're super cute. I'm really interested in you. Can I have your number?" I'm still dumbfounded to this day. We're still together. Girls, it's quite likely that 3 to 4 guys have a crush on you at any given moment, and you'll never know. Even if we don't, we might just give you a shot because it's so rare that a girl comes up to us. Just a thought. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 15. Dissenting opinion, I would not view it favorably, although it is context dependent. In a bar and some woman comes over and makes the first move, I would assume she's a scam artist or in some other way trying to take advantage of me. If it's a woman I've known for a long time and she's in a friend zone, I would be less put off, but still find it strange. I don't trust girls who make the first move, but it's entirely down to my own experiences. The last girl to make the first move on me ended up just using me as a rebound. She did the same thing with the guy before me, and the same thing with the guy after me. She even moved on from her husband of 8 years within 1 month. I know she isn't a cheater, but as an attractive woman, she always had a lot of opportunities available when she's single. She's too scared to be alone, so she's never waited for more than 2 weeks to get with a new person. I wish I'd known this all before I fell for her. I know it is unfair, but I find it hard to rationalize a woman making the move now. I'm too skeptical. There are tons of obvious ways for a woman to signal she's interested in blatant first move behavior, though it would be strange and indicate a lack of acknowledgement of social norms. A woman saying, "Oh my god, I love Thai food, but I hate eating out alone since my boyfriend and I split up," is a lot less off-putting than a woman asking, "Will you go on a dinner date with me next weekend at 8?" Yes, they are both essentially saying the same thing, but I would be really put off by the latter. Story 16. The same way I feel about guys making the first move. It's fine. I remember feeling shy about saying I liked someone. I buried my feelings and ended up ambiguously kind of dating someone who was also too shy about making a definitive move. Then, in my first year of college, I started a relationship by saying to someone who gave me the right vibes, "Do you want a date?" And in my second year of college, a girl invited me out for a date over email after a D&D session because she was too shy to do so in person. It's fine. It's all fine. The person who noticed their feelings first spoke up, and it gave the other person a chance to decide what to do. Also, a personal opinion. Anyone who gets in a huff about a prospective partner's assertiveness, threatening their masculinity, doesn't deserve clarity in a relationship. Making the first move is an act of clarity. So much BS starts from people being too immature to say what they mean in a suitably direct and respectful way. And in moments when the feelings aren't reciprocated, well, it probably hurt the asker somewhat. It was okay too, provided they didn't make it weird by, say, trying to nice guy or girl into a relationship, or hostile, by stalking. Getting that information would help them refocus and minimize the agonizing, the idealization, the pedestal putting on top of. The shy D&D player turning into a bold email dater is the kind of plot twist we need more of in real life. Story 17. I basically had to make the first real move with my now husband. We had been dancing around each other for months, but a combination of non-committal awkwardness and hesitation had prevailed for the whole of that, so I decided I had enough of it and made my move. He later confided that part of the reason he had been so aloof was because of a mild age gap. I was 20 and he was 27, combined with some info about my past, and he was worried about pressure or appearances. It's not like I wasn't cognizant of the difference, but it wasn't large and we were both students. Though I was still an undergrad and we had just clicked so naturally that it never concerned me. I had been questioning whether he was actually into me or not due to his skittishness and just got impatient. He just had this big goofy smile on his face and we hit it off. I asked him if he would have ever actually asked me out if I hadn't, and he admitted he might not have. That he had been questioning the obvious hints I had been dropping. But his anxiety faded when I demanded he stop being an idiot. Story 18. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it depends. In my experience, if a girl approached me and I rejected her for whatever reason, there was a total meltdown about half the time. Oftentimes, I've been called not straight by girls I rejected. I do my best to be direct and kind, but the nice guy syndrome is just as real on the female side of rejection in my experience. It takes a lot of maturity to face rejection, and some men and women aren't capable of being in the receiving end. Don't get me wrong either. Some women handled it amazingly well. Unfortunately, what ended up happening was I began to fear being approached by women I was not interested in. It also made me very empathetic for what women must face a lot because I'm sure they're approached by immature men all the time. Long story short, the trepidation I felt when being approached made me extra fearful in approaching women I was interested in. I was fearful I was going to put them in the same state of discomfort, on top of my own regular fear of rejection. So take it on the chin like an adult and be nice to each other out there. Story 19. I posted this same question on my Facebook, and the guy I was hinting towards commented saying, "Girls who make the first move are superior creatures." Fast forward to a motorcycle meet at the drag strip. He showed up in his sweatpants, inhaler in hand, riding his clapped-out Honda Grom. We never really talked before, but I asked him if he wanted to stand with me near the track. Both of us were awkward and introverted and didn't say much. He went to go home, so I said, screw it. Gave him the puppy dog eyes and asked him for a ride. He said yes. He picked up his boosted Subaru and he took me home. On the way, we saw our friends go to B-dubs in their motorcycles and stopped for some impromptu Long Island iced teas. After he dropped me off, I messaged him, saying I had a great time and would like to see him again. On our second date, we had some drinks, and he went home. I texted him, asking him to come over. Fast forward 6 months and we haven't spent a night apart. Long story short, I made all the moves on my boyfriend, and 6 months later, we haven't spent a night apart. He's relieved I put in the work because we likely wouldn't be together had I not. Story 20. Great. Fear of rejection has always been there, but I absorbed a lot of hesitation because of the potential for cruelty. I turned out right in terms of working with women and walking past them respectfully in the street. I don't leer at them or say, "Smile, honey," or call cashiers darling. I'm very careful. I would never dream of trying to date a coworker or a subordinate, but I absorbed this too much. I was always afraid that if I showed interest in a woman, I was forcing potentially unwanted advances on her, regardless of the circumstances. I was already nervous with girls. The risk of violating their boundaries became a powerful prohibition. Imagine not being rejected, but getting the vibe that your obvious intentions were completely inappropriate. And now this poor woman is saddled with the burden of having to deal with you from then on, with your dirty intentions still sticking up the air even though she's rejected you. Basically, it got to the point where I felt guilty even looking at a woman, as if I was mistreating her. There's been a lot written about the male gaze, so can you blame me? This paranoia turned me way inward. I never took initiative. I missed a lot of romantic opportunities and confused a lot of women who wondered why I didn't give them some signal that I was interested. I wound up in some bad relationships because basically, they only got with women who ran at me and pushed through all this. But it turns out I'm not a good match for big extroverts, so overall it just wasn't working. I think I lost 10 years of my life circling the drain. When online dating came around, I was overjoyed because every woman in the service had expressed at least some openness to advances. If she rejected me, she was just rejecting me. I had no fear of boundary violation. After a life of being awkward around women, I also had no skills for chatting them up, so being able to send an electronic message was a welcome way to kick things off. I eventually met my wife online. Obviously, a lot of this was just my problem. I think some of it is also a sign of the times we're in. I happened to grow up just when my culture was becoming aware of cruelty and beginning to reject it. Someday I hope that these are largely eliminated so we don't need to be sending all the "men are cruel" signals quite so loud as we do today. I'm not saying that reasonable feminists actually run around saying this, just that a growing boy who's still figuring things out might see Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, Al Franken, and Aziz Ansari and not be able to tell any difference between what they all did. It can add up to a shy feeling that approaching women under any circumstances runs the risk of being a grabber. Again, I'm not saying that anyone is accusing men of that, just that, as a young man, you can internalize that fear and become paralyzed by it. I hope that as time goes on, women can take initiative just as easily as men can. So no one winds up in that situation where they've given a man plenty of hints, but they have to move on because he'll never take initiative. Men are constantly taught that what we think are signals are not actually signals. Don't think every woman who smiles at you is into you. How does a young guy still figuring life out make sense of all this? But once a woman has expressed clear interest, all that goes away. Not only does it grant permission to engage, it also tells you you've got a decent chance of not being rejected. One simple gesture makes an entire lifetime of neurosis vanish. Please do this more often, ladies. Story 21. Duh. Anyone would prefer the other person making the first move because it means you're not putting yourself in the vulnerable position of potential rejection. This isn't a guy versus girl thing. What is a guy versus girl thing is that we seem to still hold this outdated view that men must be the initiators. Otherwise, it shows a perceived lack of masculinity. Or that women who make the first move are overbearing, aggressive, and deviant. We live in 2019. If anyone thinks you're less of a man for not making the first move, they're the problem, not you. And if someone thinks a woman is an aggressive person because she knows who she wants and is unafraid to go for it, then the judgmental schmuck is the problem. Most people don't think about these things, and we just stick to tradition for no reason other than that's the way it's always been, and being uncomfortable with subverting those expectations. A tradition without reason has no place in modern society. The question shouldn't be, how do guys feel about girls making their first move? The question should be, why are we so uncomfortable with getting rid of outdated gender norms? Because seriously, who wouldn't want to be free of the burden of making oneself vulnerable to scrutiny and rejection? Story 22. I've known my boyfriend for 10 years. We've been like best friends and at some point had a sort of father-daughter relationship, which is kind of weird when I think about it now, but yeah. About 4 years into the friendship, I realized I don't think of him as a friend. So then I waited till I turned 17 and told him that I think I have a huge crush on him and might even love him. He waited till I turned 18, and ever since we've been going on pretty strong. I'm 20 now. He absolutely loved that I made the first move because he said he also had a bit of a thing for me, but he felt like it would be wrong to say or do anything. And I'm glad I waited because he said if I said anything any earlier, he would have tried to disregard it as some sort of infatuation. But yeah, he's happy, I'm happy. I love flirting with him all the time, watching him smile when I call him perfect or tease him when he's clumsy. Story 23. I actually need it. I've spoken to a few female friends about this recently and have been amazed at their surprise. As someone with low self-esteem or actively overthinking all the time, I am very bad at reading the obvious signals girls say they give out. One example from a recent date was apparently eye contact during a conversation. If that is a signal, then I have missed out on a lot of opportunities. But anyway, I'm too afraid to make the first move because of two reasons. Firstly, I don't want to have read the situation wrong and the person feels pestered. That doesn't help anyone. Secondly, if we are getting along well but they only want to be friends, me trying to kiss them has suddenly betrayed that friendship, only adding evidence that guys always want more than being friends, which I would hate to contribute to. So essentially, I have to really know the girl wants it. The easiest way for that to happen is for them to make a move. You might say, oh, but sometimes you can just tell. Yes, that is true. On the odd occasion that has been blindingly obvious, most of those times involve drinks though. But in terms of having hung out with someone for a while, not knowing if the feelings are mutual, dealing with the above two fears is a minefield of its own, happening just in my head. I could simply ask, and I've done that once or twice, but a friend of mine told me if she likes a guy and wants him to kiss her, if he asks, that instantly puts her off. She wants a guy that just goes for it. So yeah, minefield. Story 24. My wife pretty much made the first move in the sense that she took the first big obvious step to ask me to do something with her alone. It was something as simple as walking her to the bus stop after class. We did that a few times and she asked me every time, rather than the other guys that were clearly known by everybody and popular, and avoided people that essentially pursued her before. I think the fact that I was totally oblivious to starting a romantic relationship with her in the first place actually gave her relief and safety. I wasn't there to get in her pants. I wasn't there to date her and gain bro points. I wasn't there to awkwardly ask her questions. I was honestly helping her get to the bus stop safely and be a good hang, friendly conversation. That's all. Story 25. Ever hear stories of girls dropping hints and it going completely over a guy's head? There's two reasons for that. Number one, most guys are so used to being rejected, or at least the idea of being rejected, that the idea of someone being interested doesn't match up in their head. It doesn't compute. So when the hint is dropped, it either confuses him or he brushes it off and moves on as if she's still not interested. Number two, it's as simple as most guys aren't used to girls making their first move. They're used to having to make that first move themselves. Once again, it doesn't compute. Often enough, guys don't like the hint dropping and would prefer brutal honesty because if they misread something they thought was a hint and acted on it, they run the risk of it backfiring on them. There's fear of being looked at negatively, not only by the girl, but also run the risk of being looked at negatively by society, because the girl would likely go to tell her friends, and they would go tell their friends, and on, until the whole town knows about it. Plus, there's no telling what is being told down the grapevine as people change certain things due to whatever reason. Misunderstanding the original story or whatever reason. Now you've got the whole town maybe looking at you like you're a stalker because that's how one person heard the story and that's the story they told to everyone else. Now if the hint is fielded successfully and things go great, then it would be a breath of fresh air. It's like this whole step of getting over fear of asking out and everything is now cut out and you can just enjoy each other's company. I'm all for it. Story 26. It feels great, regardless of interest, but if he's interested, it's the best thing to happen. So for me, go for it. I'm personally pretty good at picking up signals and vibes, but not when they're directed at me. Then I'm absolutely horrible. For example, I could tell my best friend was going to get together with her current boyfriend before she knew, but I wasn't sure my ex was into me romantically until she literally kissed me. So I love when a girl makes the first move because then I don't have that uncertainty anymore. When I know her feelings for sure, I know how to act. Whether it's reciprocating the feelings openly or gently rejecting her. But while I'm uncertain about her feelings, I will usually hold off on doing anything for fear of having misunderstood her intentions. Making a move removes uncertainty. It might end up with a hopefully gentle rejection, but at least you know where you're at. Giving hints doesn't usually work unless they're blatant enough to count as a move. It's literally always the best option, even if it might cause you some temporary unhappiness. Story 27. To the one girl that may see this, we live in a world where us men fully understand the extent of what we see in the news. It's extremely extensive, the stuff that women go through, versus what guys go through. Every single person on the planet understands this, and it has become bigger now than it has ever been in human existence. We're all on the same page in the subject. That being understood, us men feel as if when we're talking to a girl, that we could potentially be bothering them because they're good at masking it because they don't want things to be awkward. I personally never make the first move. I will follow through with whatever hints you give me. Being that women are the weaker link in societal terms, I truly believe they should be the ones to ultimately follow through with making the first move. A man can get the hints, a man can understand when you really want to take it to first or second base. We're totally okay with you making a move on us and are literally never bothered by it, even if we're not into you. We don't feel threatened by your decisions and what you say to us, but if it were a guy saying it to a girl, it can be scary at times. So we all as a human race agree that the woman is more vulnerable. We should all agree that it is essential for the woman to take the first steps. But you have to make it clear. Want to hang out? You're cute. Do you have a girlfriend? Type clear. Not just being nice, because we'll take that as just being friendly and won't follow through. Story 28. I was crushing hard on my dispatcher. He's 20 years my senior, but the most beautiful man I've ever seen. Didn't think he'd be into me with the age gap, so I pined away for him for close to a year. He also doubled as the company mechanic, so I'd always be coming up with excuses for him to do a ride-along after his shift was over to check out a weird sound my craptastic taxi was making. I finally got the courage up one night to put my neck in the block and go for it. Asked him, "Is there something up there you think?" "I don't know, is there?" He says. "I asked you first." I returned. "Just celebrated our 15th anniversary last week. He still gives me butterflies. And we now own our own taxi. So glad I shamelessly threw myself at him like a brazen hussy. Lol. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.